Okay, I think we are going to, it's 10:03. We are going to begin. Good morning, everybody, OCASI members. Welcome. It's great to see you all here this Thursday morning. My name is Marta Orellana. I am a senior coordinator for policy and membership with OCASI. Debbie sent her regrets as she's sorry she could not join us this morning. As you know, we are here today to discuss the idea of a pension plan for the nonprofit sector. This is a sector of work that strives for excellency, innovation, and the ability to help the most vulnerable and marginalized. In an effort to remain competitive and sustainable, various players within the nonprofit sector, including OCASI, are championing the Common Good Retirement Plan as a way to create and sustain avenues to decent work. Before we start, we would like to acknowledge the land on which we reside.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Selena, and I'll be delivering the land acknowledgement. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional territories of the peoples of Turtle Island. The sacred land on which we are gathered today has been a site of human activity for 15,000 years. We acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Ishnabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. This territory was the subject of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and the Ojibwe and allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit.
Thank you, Selena. Before we begin, there are just a few housekeeping items. We kindly ask you to keep yourself muted in an effort to get the clearest sound without any disruptions. Please feel free to use the chat box to communicate and ask questions. We'll be checking it and monitoring regularly. The town hall will be recorded and uploaded into our YouTube account. We encourage you to use it as a point of reference and to share it with your networks. We will be using simultaneous translation during the webinar in both official languages. If you click on the glove icon at the bottom of the screen, you will be able to select either English or French. Please click on the language of your choice. The format will be presentation by Connor and Kirk, followed by a question and answer. Again, feel free to use the chat box to ask your questions or raise your Zoom hand. We also have a speakers list to keep track of the conversation. Without any delay, then Selena will introduce our speakers for today.
Thank you, Martha. All right, so beginning with one of our first presenters, Connor Bays. Connor Bays is Director of Employer Solutions at Commonwealth and one of the project leads for the Common Good Plan. In this role, he supports employers in building and scaling retirement programs that have a positive impact on the members' financial health. Connor combines his experience across multiple disciplines to support plan sponsors and members in enhancing retirement outcomes and value for money. Connor also advances Commonwealth's broader mission of expanding access to retirement security by supporting the development of new partnerships with plan supporters and other organizations to improve retirement security for Canadians. Connor is also joined by his colleague Kirk Wright, who is an account executive with Commonwealth and a project lead for the Common Good Plan, an initiative aimed at advancing retirement security for Canada's nonprofit and charitable sector. He works closely with employers to design and implement the retirement solutions that foster great workplaces and build financial wellness for staff members. Kirk is passionate about utilizing technology and education to empower people to improve their well-being, leveraging experience across a variety of roles spanning management consulting, financial institutions, as well as data-driven not-for-profit organizations. Connor and Kirk, welcome. We appreciate your time today. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Selena, and thank you, Martha, for the introduction. And thank you to all of you for joining us today and having us speak with your group. We're really excited to share a bit about the Common Good Plan with you and the opportunity to build employee financial health. And we're just very grateful to be working with a great partner like OCASI, who's been a wonderful champion. And I'm sorry Debbie couldn't join us today, but we're really excited to speak to the group, and let's get into it. So a little bit about what we're going to cover today. We've already done part one. There's going to be two major sections to what we do. We're going to highlight a little bit the opportunity that OCASI members have to build employee financial health, and a little bit about the origins of the Common Good Plan as a tool to do that. And the bulk of the presentation component, which is going to be probably about 25 minutes or half an hour, we're actually going to show you the Common Good Plan, a new solution that's been built by a coalition of not-for-profit champions and retirement experts to give organizations like yours, your team, your colleagues, your leadership, a way to help build employee financial health. So we're going to spend the first kind of half, again, 20, 25 minutes, half an hour on that. And then we hope to have lots of time for questions. We might wrap up in 45 minutes. If there's more questions than that, we have until the full hour. And I'll say off the bat that we're more than happy to speak with folks as well after the fact. You can always find us and book time with us if you want to figure out how this might work for your organization. And as Martha and Selena said, if you have questions as we go through and you want to pop them in the chat, please feel free to do that, and we can address them as we go or address them at the end. And then we'll also have that Q&A as well. A little bit about Common Good and the groups behind it. Again, we're going to show you what the plan is and how it works, but Common Good's really a unique partnership between not-for-profit sector champions and leaders, and then retirement security experts, including Commonwealth, where Kirk and I work. We're a firm that helps build retirement plans with communities to help people build retirement security. On the not-for-profit sector side, we're fortunate to have funders and champions, including groups like Maytree, the Atkinson Foundation, Van City, United Way of Canada, really some great groups that are helping promote and advance common good in different parts of the country and different parts of the nonprofit sector. And again, OCASI is a really important element of this, has been a wonderful champion helping us speak to settlement organizations who are interested in improving the retirement security of their staff and the resiliency of their organizations. The other key element that we want to highlight and just acknowledge is we have a really great group of nonprofit sector employers who have implemented Common Good. They've rolled it out for their teams. They're using it to save for retirement. So this is just a snapshot of some of the organizations that have joined the plan across Canada. They're not just in the settlement sector. This spans environmental groups, this spans educational groups, really every corner of the social sector and every corner of the country as well in every province and territory. So we're really excited to continue adding to this group. Common Good went live as a plan and started enrolling its first employers this past November. And part of what we hope to do today is highlight this for you and your organization, and if it's a fit to help your staff, show you how that can work and give you a next step there as well. So we'll start with a little bit of the opportunity that we feel settlement groups have to build employee financial health. And you could frame this as the problem as well, but we wanted to share a little bit of data around the situation that your employees or your colleagues likely face, and what Common Good aims to address. So the bottom line is that planning for retirement is a real challenge for Canadians and for, again, your employees and your colleagues. The data says that 3 in every 4 of us are concerned about having enough money in retirement. Again, we don't make it easy for ourselves in that 1 in every 2 nonprofit employees do not have a good plan for retirement savings. And if you look at the outcomes that people are facing, the median retirement savings for folks near retirement, so 50 plus, who don't have a good workplace retirement or pension plan, is just $3,000. So a lot of folks are reaching retirement with very little saved. And mid-size organizations and smaller organizations in particular, if you have fewer than 1,000 employees, it's actually pretty tough to offer a good plan that helps people address and solve these problems. The pandemic has played a role here too. So if this problem existed pre-pandemic, it's certainly become worse since last year. And just a little bit of what the data says there, 35% of those earning less than $50,000 or less, have stopped saving for retirement due to the pandemic. And there's an inequity issue there, as you can imagine. Folks earning really high incomes have actually not stopped saving at all. So there's a real equity element to this as well. And it spans ages as well. So fully 59% of Canadians, including 73% of Gen Z employees, are worried about the effect of the pandemic on their savings and on their retirement plans. So that's where Common Good comes in, is really to provide a solution to help address these problems, build that financial wellness for employees, help people address those concerns. And for an employer, taking that lens, the idea is to really help your employees build financial security, help you attract and retain good employees who might, be leaving the organization to go work somewhere with stronger benefits. We often hear from nonprofits that folks go and join the public sector because they can get, a better retirement or pension plan. And so Common Good is meant to be a flexible, low-cost way for you to do that. We're really aimed at two key groups of employers if we look at who's joining the plan and taking advantage of it. The first is if you're offering some kind of retirement benefit, but you want to enhance it or get more bang for buck, more value for money for what you're doing, Common Good is a great solution for that type of organization. So for example, if you have a RRSP matching program, you're contributing to RSP savings through a bank or a life insurance group RSP program, Common Good is meant to be a higher value, lower cost way for you to make that contribution to staff retirement saving. So we're often helping employers transition from a legacy group RSP program into Common Good. The other major group that we're working with is employers who have no retirement saving plan today and want to get started in a way that's flexible and high quality for their staff. So what does a good retirement plan look like? What's different, or what does Common Good add to the kind of landscape? We're going to go into this in more detail, but Common Good's really about providing a real retirement plan built on 5+ years of research and development into what works in retirement. The elements of that are really 6 key things that the plan helps people do: smart saving, smart investing, low fees, minimize taxes, maximize government benefits, and provide portability. Rather than talk through these things, I'm going to pass it over to Kirk to get into the detail of how the plan delivers these for your employees and how you can offer it.
Thanks, Connor. Before we jump into the platform and see how all those 6 steps come together in the way that members save for retirement with Common Good, we wanted to talk a little bit about 2 of these steps in a little bit more detail. The first one is low fees, and the idea that you don't want to pay more than you need to. In Canada, we pay some of the highest investment fees in the world when saving for retirement. A typical individual or a member of a smaller group retirement plan is frequently going to be paying an investment fee of around 2% per year. This is quite high compared to many other countries that we might compare this to across Germany, the United States, in the UK. And with Common Good, members pay a much lower fee of 0.6%, which is about 70% less than what's typical for Canadians when saving for retirement. And these percentage-based fees, that difference can seem quite small in many ways, but it really adds up over time, particularly when you're considering a long time horizon, like someone saving for retirement. This next slide just illustrates a little bit about how those fees add up over time. Looking at an example where if you invested $50,000 over 25 years at an annual return of 5%. As you can see here, what initially looks like a small difference really adds up over time as those fees compound and those investments are growing over time. You can see with that higher fee, this person's actually lost $42,000 over those 25 years just because they're paying higher fees. And that $42,000 is money that could have been in their account for their retirement income, but instead it's going to their bank or whoever is managing that money for them.
Just on the fees piece, this 2% average that we're showing here in that bottom yellow line, where you're losing $42,000 to high fees in this example, as Kirk said, the fee problem is present both when people don't have access to an employer-based plan and also in that smaller group plan. So again, if you offer an RSP program at your workplace today, one thing we encourage you to do is dig into what fees members are paying inside their accounts. We're actually doing this with OCASI right now, looking at their group plan, and it's often surprising for the finance or HR team to learn what that fee level is for folks inside their plan, and providing a much lower fee is a big part of the common good value proposition.
Another important piece that Connor touched on a little bit is portability. So making sure that you've got a plan that can stick with you from job to job and into retirement. So with a typical group plan, sometimes it'll be able to provide some of those value drivers that Connor spoke about. So you might get decent fees, you might have fiduciary duty and some help accessing government benefits and optimizing for taxes when members are part of that plan. But when people leave that plan, whether to go to another job, go through a period of being self-employed, or even to retire, often a lot of those really important value drivers disappear. They might start paying high fees, they might lose fiduciary duty, and they might not have any help turning that nest egg into retirement income. So Common Good is designed to follow plan members throughout their career from job to job at all life stages through retirement, and make sure they're able to have a plan they can stick to, keep saving at that low fee, keep having access to really high quality education and support, and make sure they've got continuity for their retirement plan throughout their career. This is a really important piece that is often not present in some legacy plans, particularly for smaller and medium-sized employers. So it's something that's been through that design and development phase that Connor mentioned. It was something that really shone through as a need for nonprofit sector workers to make sure they had a plan that was able to follow them, that they could count on at all life stages.
And so just concretely how that works for an employee at your organization, if you offer Common Good, they enroll in the plan, they're typically receiving a matching contribution from you as the employer. But if they leave, they can actually keep contributing to their Common Good plan through their bank account and retain access to the low fee, to the investment program, all the other elements. So they won't have the contribution from their employer anymore if they leave employment, but they can still retain access to their plan and keep contributing and actually start, drawing down and using it in retirement as well.
We talked a little bit about how some of these ideas come together in the plan with the low fees and the portability, but to talk more about the details, we'd love to show you a quick demonstration of the platform and what it actually would look like for your team members to save for retirement with Common Good.
So while Kirk pulls that up, what Kirk's going to show you is the enrollment process for a member joining the plan, which helps highlight how we give people a personalized program that helps solve the questions of retirement and set up their plan. When we implement Common Good with a new employer, we're typically starting with a team-wide education session to try and make sure people understand the program, build that financial understanding, and support their entry. So if you want to offer Common Good, we'll typically work with you to, figure out the design, what kind of matching level you want. If you're transitioning from a legacy program into Common Good, well, help you figure out what that will look like. Then we'll schedule that education session with your staff. We'll help build that understanding. We'll typically offer one-on-one sessions with employees as well if they want to sit with a person to go through some of this. And then once that's done, the employees create their account in the way that Kirk's about to show you.
Excellent. So as you're enrolling in the plan as a member in Common Good, there are three main steps we want to go through to help you create a holistic retirement plan that is tailor-made for you. Those three steps are a planning phase, a savings phase, and a growing phase. So with the planning phase, the first thing you want to do is set a target for your savings. And at the core of that question is understanding how much you're going to need on a monthly basis when you retire. So the first step here will take your age, target retirement age, and your current income. This individual is making, say, $60,000 per year. and will help people to do the math to understand, based on your current situation, how much you're likely to need on a monthly basis when you reach retirement. This is based on some of that research that Connor spoke about in our design and development phase, as well as standards from the Financial Planning Standards Council of Canada, to really help people understand a really core question for retirement planning that often is forgotten in legacy group plans, which is really trying to understand how you're going to fund your lifestyle in retirement. You'll notice throughout this process, there's a lot of flexibility built into the platform. So here, for instance, you can edit this number if you're closer to retirement and have a really clear budget in mind. But one of the key principles of Common Good's platform is building in the really smart nudges and defaults to help people get a plan that's designed for them without having to go into a ton of detail and try to understand all of the research on their own. So providing really smart default guidance to make sure the plan is designed for them, even if they don't know necessarily where to start if they were doing this throughout on their own. So now that we have that initial target of $3,500 per month, we can now start to look at where people are at today in their retirement savings journey. So for many people joining the Common Good plan, this is their first time starting to save for retirement, which is totally fine. We want to make sure we're meeting people where they are. But for others, they may have some savings already that we want to take into account when we understand their go forward plan for savings. So this person might have $20,000 saved in an RRSP. They may have $10,000 saved in TFSA. They may have a previous registered pension plan as well from a previous employer. What we're going to do is, again, returning to that target retirement income of $3,500 per month, we're going to help them understand what those current savings are likely to mean for them on a monthly basis in retirement relative to that target. So as we go through this process, you'll see we're trying to start to fill up this target retirement income view to help people understand where that income is going to come from and how they can get there. The last piece of that planning step is understanding what you're going to be eligible for in retirement when it comes to government benefits. There are three main programs that we're going to include into this view: Old Age Security, the Canada Pension Plan, and the Guaranteed Income Supplement. Now, the GIS is going to be really relevant for people generally who are earning around $50,000 per year or less. It's also something that doesn't necessarily get spoken about as much in traditional retirement plans, but it's a really important factor for people in that income range. And there are some important things that the Common Good plan helps folks in that income range do to make sure you're getting the most out of these government benefits programs in retirement. So at this step, we are going to help you understand what your eligibility for these programs looks like, assuming that you'll be starting to take the benefit at age 65. This person's actually going to be eligible for a really high level of government benefits. So when they look at their target retirement income of $3,500 per month, over half of that is already accounted for by these government benefits programs. So this person now has a pretty clear idea of, with that target retirement income, based on the savings I've already done and my eligibility for government benefits, I have a clear picture of where that income's coming from and what that current gap is that I'm going to be looking to solve for on a go forward basis.
Sorry, Aditi just asked in the chat if the calculations in these planning steps factor in inflation. And the short answer is yes. So happening in the back end, this is accounting for inflation. It's accounting for planned increases in programs like CPP and OAS. So we include all of that stuff in the back end and update that regularly as things change. You know, as the government announces new things, as inflation projections change, we're always updating the kind of math in the back end. And thank you for the question.
So now that we've gone through the planning phase, the next step is going to be on that saving step. So what do we do on a go forward basis to reach that goal? And this step, the main thing that we really want to encourage people to do as they're enrolling is to make sure they're taking full advantage of that matching contribution that you as an employer are often offering to those staff members. So this member is enrolling with an employer who's offering a 5% match. There is a lot of flexibility in implementing a match with Common Good. So we really do frequently work really closely with employers to try to understand, what might make sense from a budget perspective, and within that budget, how are we able to design something that really maximizes outcomes for your team and gets them saving as much as possible. And so that's one thing that we, if you are interested in exploring this and what might make sense for you as an organization in terms of implementing a plan and a match, Connor and I would be happy to work with you to understand a little bit more about your team and your needs and find something that works for you. It often ends up being, not quite as expensive as people think it's going to be. So we can certainly work with you on that and dig into it. So when someone is offering a match, we really do recommend that plan member takes full advantage, whether it's a 5% match, 2% match, even a flat dollar match can be implemented in many cases as well. So, up to say $500 per year. But whatever match is on the table, we really want to make sure people enrolling in the plan are taking full advantage of that great benefit that employers are offering them. It's an easy way to double their savings right away. This shows where that contribution is going to be coming from and how that relates to their paycheck. So for this person contributing 5% and a biweekly paycheck, that's going to be about $115 from their contribution and about $115 from the employer as well with that match. Now there is flexibility when contributing to either go above and beyond that contribution level and still getting that 5% maximum match from the employer, or to contribute less if people need to as well. So if someone wanted to contribute 2%, they'd still get a 2% match from their employer. They wouldn't get that full 5% because they're contributing at the 2% level.
And I'll just jump in. Karen in the chat has asked, do we recommend matching? And what about employers who are providing a contribution but are not asking staff to contribute? So great question, Karen. We typically do recommend matching. It's a great way to incentivize employees to contribute. If you want to do a contribution that doesn't require a match, you can absolutely do that as well. Or you can do a mixture of the two. So matching is probably the most common setup if you're starting a plan for the first time. But if you have a program where, today you're just providing a particular dollar amount or a percentage contribution straight into people's accounts, you can do that through the Common Good plan as well.
One area that's really important to look at when talking about these contributions is where those contributions are going. So the Common Good plan is built around two account types, the TFSA, the tax-free savings account, and the RRSP, or Registered Retirement Savings Plan. These are the two accounts that most Canadians use to save for retirement in a tax-advantaged way, and they work a little bit differently. But when used together, they really are able to help Canadians optimize for minimizing their taxes and getting the most out of their government benefits. We're going to help members in this step, again, in that spirit of smart defaults and nudges in the right direction. We'll help recommend where you're likely best off saving to maximize those government benefits and minimize taxes. So for this member enrolling, we've taken the information she's entered so far and determined she's likely best off saving with the RRSP. This is going to help give a tax deduction today, and that's going to be the biggest benefit that she'll be able to take advantage of at this stage. One thing that is less typical than you might see in a legacy plan is the inclusion of the TFSA as well. And there's a couple things that are really powerful about that. The big one being it's a great savings vehicle for people to take advantage of if they're earning around $50,000 per year or less, because it helps them to protect their eligibility for the guaranteed income supplement, that government benefits program we looked at earlier. Just to talk a little bit about how this works, it's really important for people in that income range to save with the TFSA, because what it does is when you withdraw from the TFSA in retirement, the way that the TFSA is structured is it won't count as taxable income at that stage. And because of that, it's going to protect from a really significant clawback, 50 cents or even 75 cents on the dollar of their guaranteed income supplement eligibility. So it's something that's really important for people to consider. And we'll make that recommendation automatically for members at this stage to make sure, even if they don't know what to look out for in terms of optimizing for taxes, if they were doing it on their own, we'll make sure that they're making that good default decision for them that's going to protect their government benefits and help them get the most out of their savings. There is flexibility to, again, edit these if, say you really do want to save with the TFSA in this case and not the RRSP, you can always edit these values. But again, that idea of smart defaults and making sure people are set up with a plan that's tailor-made for them is really important. And it's a key piece of that education component of what Common Good is all about. When we return to that picture of target retirement income with $3,500 per month, now this plan member has a really clear idea of where that income is going to come from and how they're going to get there. So, government benefits taking up a big chunk of it here. Other savings that they've already done also contributing. And then this plan, given the plan that they've looked at with that employer contribution, really impactful, is going to get them almost all the way up to their target retirement income.
Aditi just made a comment in the chat. Just want to address quickly. I guess you framed as a question. You said, so it's like financial advisor services built in. That's actually a pretty good way of looking at it. What it does in a sense is design in financial and retirement planning advice right into the experience someone goes through. So you put it quite well. Basically, we want to construct the enrollment process so we help people build and make good financial decisions right as they enroll.
Yeah, that is a really great way to frame it, actually. I like that. So now we've covered that planning step and the saving step. The next piece is on growing your savings. Now, when we talk about investing and saving for retirement in particular, there are two key things you really want to make sure you get right to maximize your retirement success. And that's going to be having a diversified asset allocation. And the other is going to be adjusting for risk over time. Now, these are two things that are really difficult to do as an individual, but they're also critical to make sure you're saving effectively for retirement. To make sure that we can achieve this for plan members, we partnered with an asset manager called BlackRock. They're actually the world's largest asset manager. And we offer a really curated, streamlined list of investments called target date funds. So these are investments that are tailor-made for retirement, designed to do exactly those two things that we talked about with diversification and risk management. And BlackRock is actually the largest asset manager in the world and a pioneer of this type of investing in Canada. Now, again, tying back to that idea of evidence-based research, there's actually a study out of the Pensions Research Council at the University of Pennsylvania that recently showed that this approach to investing can lead to up to 2.3% higher annual average returns than a typical individual trying to do the same type of thing. And that really adds up over time. When you look at what that equates to over a 30-year time horizon of saving for retirement, that leads up to 50% more retirement income than that individual trying to emulate the same thing. So it's hugely impactful to be able to get these two things right and properly manage your risk at every phase throughout your retirement savings journey. Just to illustrate a little bit what those funds do and how it works, you'll be matched when you're enrolling in the plan with a target date fund based on your target retirement age. So this person enrolling is 35 years old, planning to retire at age 65, been matched with that 2050 fund because it's closest to their target retirement date. When they're 35, they don't need to access those funds for another 30 years. So they can actually withstand a little bit more short-term volatility in their savings in favor of longer-term growth, which is really going to be what's going to power them towards that retirement savings target. So at age 35, BlackRock's going to make sure that that fund for them has a higher concentration of stocks, so almost 90% here, which are going to be that higher growth, but also a little higher short-term volatility, and less in bonds and real estate and infrastructure investments here. However, when this person reaches retirement at age 65, they need to start drawing down on those funds, and they can't withstand that same short-term volatility anymore. So they're going to need to have a more conservative allocation here with 60% in bonds and much less in stocks as well. So still having some growth, making sure we're able to keep growing those savings, but making sure that this member is insulated from those risks that people might run into when it comes to drawing down on their savings as well. And
So Karen,
every step through.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Kirk.
I was just going to say, and you know, that's not just a kind of a binary switch that happens. In fact, at every stage throughout their career, BlackRock's going to make sure that their risk tolerance and their allocation is optimized for them to make sure that they're appropriately balancing risk and growth. And again, this is something that's really difficult to do as an individual, but with Common Good, leveraging that power of the group, we're able to have this really powerful, more institutional approach to investing that provides that professionally managed way of doing this for plan members and managing their investments over their career.
Yeah, so Karen asked in the chat, who chooses the funds? Part of the approach here is to kind of streamline things a bit more for employees. The data is very clear that if you provide folks with 40 or 50 different fund choices, which is often the case in the kind of legacy group plans today, they tend to make suboptimal choices. People pick a fund that's too conservative given their age, or they pick one that's too aggressive given their age, and that puts a drag on their returns over time. So what we've aimed to do here is choose an investment program that is proven to work. This type of fund is the most popular in larger group retirement arrangements, especially in the US, because it does work and it is automatic for the members. So you're not asking people to be their own chief investment officer. They're actually having some professional help there. If you scroll down, Kirk, you'll see that the member can actually choose a different fund if they want to start more aggressively or start more conservatively. We are fairly direct in terms of suggesting which one is likely best for them. So you'll see that suggested for you because that's when the member plans to retire. Karen, you also, I think, are asking, are these actively managed funds? They're not really actively managed. So part of the philosophy here is these target date funds are built on passive index-based ETF offerings from BlackRock. So there's over 10,000 different underlying stocks and bonds and investments inside each fund. Part of the advantage of working with BlackRock, they are the world's largest asset manager. As Kirk said, they have $8 trillion under management. They have access to that really, truly diversified portfolio of investments. So you avoid things like home bias, which people often experience, having too much of your investments in Canadian holdings. Working with a provider like BlackRock helps people avoid that too. So the management is not active in the sense that someone's choosing companies that they think are going to go up. It's more of that passive approach where you're buying the market, so to speak. Where there is a bit more management and quite a bit of sophistication is in designing how that allocation or that mixture changes over time. So quite a lot of thought goes into what mixture is likely optimum for that 65-year-old versus the same person at 35, 40, 50 throughout that kind of life path. So a lot of work goes into understanding what that mixture of stocks and bonds should be, but there's not kind of that trying to pick which companies are going to do well or do poorly. You are getting that kind of index-based, more passive approach. And Kim, so just to clarify your question you asked, so as you age, do they change your investments or do you? This happens automatically. So the slider Kirk's showing here is just meant to help the member, help you see how your investments are going to change, but this happens completely in the background. So you invest in the fund every year that your money is inside that fund. BlackRock is going to adjust that mixture on your behalf automatically.
Excellent. I'll click through here. We're completed those planning, saving, and growing steps. So we'll just go through the confirmation of the plan summary here. Terms and agreements. And now we've completed the enrollment process. It usually takes about 15 to 20 minutes to enroll. And again, it helps members to create that holistic retirement plan that they'll be able to return to and check in on through their member dashboard, which is what you're seeing here. So this is a hub that members will have access to at any time if they want to go back to make changes, track progress, or contribute to their plan on top of what they're currently contributing through their payroll. So a couple ways they can do that really quickly. One is to set up contributions from their bank account. Now, Connor mentioned this is how people will save the Common Good plan after they've left a participating employer, but members can actually contribute from their bank account even while they're a member of a participating employer, and we'll help them through this process to figure out what they need to do to close that gap to their target retirement income. It also includes some tools like auto escalation, which is built on Nobel Prize winning research in economics, to help people understand if I wanted to reach that target level, but I can't start at the full $150 per month today, how could I build a plan to catch up to that level of savings over time? It's a great way to help create a plan that you can commit to in advance and reach that target level. And here again, only missing out on about $20, which is really negligible when you look at that target retirement income picture. Members also have the opportunity to add more funds. So either by doing a lump sum contribution, people like to do this at the end of the year often, or by transferring in an existing TFSA or RRSP. Again, that's a really great way that over half of our members actually end up looking to do, which is transferring in those existing savings to take advantage of those low fees and the really high quality investment options, as well as making sure they consolidate their funds to take advantage of all that planning that we walked through today to consolidate their savings under one umbrella.
Sudip has asked, does the management fee for members, that 0.6%, depend on which fund or plan the member has? It does not. That fee is constant no matter which fund you use or the level of savings you have. It's the same for everybody. So providing transparency and a constant low fee for everyone is a part of the goal here for sure. Another quick question from Kim was, when looking at the real estate and infrastructure component of the investment portfolio, what's inside that? So that's investments that BlackRock helps you make in things like airports, shopping malls. That category of investments is something that, again, is quite hard for individuals to invest in on their own. Part of having a group plan like this and having that more institutional investment program is you are able to invest in things like bridges, airports, shopping malls, large infrastructure projects that require a bit more scale to get access to as an investor.
Well, that covers the portion where we were going to cover the demo and walk through the platform. Connor, do you want to speak a little bit to next steps before we jump into questions if people want to learn more and explore this for their team?
Yeah, absolutely. And there have been some great questions along the way, but looking forward to hearing more from folks in the time we have left. But just to cover this quickly in case people need to drop off, the best next step if you're interested in this for yourself or your organization is to book a consultation with a common good specialist. So typically what that looks like is a 30 or 45-minute call with someone from the plan to evaluate, help answer your specific questions of how it would look for you and your team. And if there are next steps, help you go through those. So maybe Kirk, you can post that link in the chat as well, so people have access to it right from the chat. But there's a link where you can very easily schedule that appointment for yourself or your team. Typically, if you're the finance or HR executive director, we'll start with that first conversation. Great way to get started. You can also follow us or subscribe at CW Retirement, or commongoodplan.ca is the website to find that. And so Kirk has just posted that appointment link right there in the chat. So we encourage you if you're interested to do that. Jonathan asked if we are able to get a copy of the presentation. I see, Selena, you've already replied, but absolutely. So presentation, as well as I think the recording, we'll make available to folks too. And again, we really encourage you to get in touch with us and book that consultation if you do want to understand how it might work for your employees. So with that, we'll open it up to questions. I'm just going to look through the chat in case there's anything we've missed. So Karen's asked, what about transferring from other funds? Maybe Kirk, do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, certainly. So transferring in is a great way for people to consolidate their savings, and it's a really simple process through Common Good. So members at any time will be able to transfer in either an existing TFSA or RRSP, or from their own bank account, make a lump sum contribution. It's about a 5-click process. It's really straightforward to go through from your end. You'll just need your bank account information. You can transfer in either a specific amount or the full account if you're looking to transfer it in. And then we will do all the work on the back end of working with your financial institution to make that transfer in and make sure you're able to get those funds into your Common Good account. It's a really great way, again, to take advantage of that lower fee if you're paying like maybe that 2% fee elsewhere on your savings. And it's a really easy process as well to go through.
And Karen, sometimes that question, if you're talking about individual transfers, that's what Kirk described is absolutely correct. The other question we sometimes get is, if I'm an employer, pardon me, who offers a group RSP program and I want to move that over to Common Good because I want, the lower fee and these planning features and all the good stuff that this plan offers, we can help you do that as well. There's kind of 2 ways to do that, and we would, get into the detail with you, but often we can do what's called a qualified group transfer, where the whole plan is just lifted up and shifted over to Common Good. That's a great way to, make sure that you're not leaving any employees behind and that you kind of make that a process that's really efficient. There are other ways to do it too, and we can, help evaluate which one would be best for your plan. Melika asked, is there a GVT incentive for employers to match contributions, or is it all deducted from salary at the end of the day? So I think if I'm understanding your question correctly, Melika, you're asking, is there a tax incentive for employers to make contributions? I guess the short answer is there's no real tax incentive for the employer. It all counts as kind of gross compensation to employees at the end of the day. There is obviously an incentive for employees to be contributing from a tax perspective to that RSP program or to that TFSA program. And one big advantage too is that if you're enabling matching, you're providing that contribution as the employer, and you're doing it through payroll, employees get an upfront tax deduction by having their contributions come straight from their paycheck versus, you pay the employee, then they contribute to the RSP and they get that tax refund at the end of the year. So a lot of great advantages to doing it through payroll and having that match come from you as the employer as well. Hanadi asked, is the lower fee varying from individual to groups? So for employers participating in Common Good, the fees are all the same. So that's 0.6% for members. And then there's a flat subscription fee per participating employee that's joining the plan as well. So part of what we want to do on the pricing side is make it really transparent and straightforward how those fees work. So those don't vary between employees and between employers on the group side. If you leave an employer and you're participating in the plan on your own, the fees are still going to stay about 70% lower than typical individual. They are going to change slightly. They're going to be 0.7%. So they're going to go up 0.1%. And you're going to pay a $3 per month flat fee as an individual for the subscription to the plan. So still about 70% lower than retail, but you do pay a slightly higher fee if you're an individual because you don't have that employer kind of helping cover some of the costs there. Just going to take a look if there are any other questions coming through, or Kirk, are there things that people haven't asked that they should have that we want to cover, or trying to think?
I think there's, one thing that often comes up is, people will say, my team is mainly older staff. We don't have a lot of young folks. This might have been something that would be exciting to implement if we did have a younger team. But actually, in many ways, it's really powerful to offer a plan like Common Good when you do have older staff members as well who might be closer to retirement. And then there's a couple reasons for that. One is that you can transfer in, like we talked about. You can transfer savings into the plan and make sure that you're taking advantage of that lower fee on those investments throughout retirement and even at the end of their career as well. That's something that, like we talked about with the portability piece, can be really impactful, is making sure that you're able to have the low fee and those investments throughout your career, and particularly with that retirement specific risk appropriate investment approach. And then the other side is on the education and support around planning for retirement. You know, once you reach retirement or close to retirement, those decisions actually become quite a bit more complex. And often that's when people need the most support in terms of education and planning to get ready for turning that nest egg into retirement income. And that's something that Common Good is also really focused on, is throughout people's career, providing really high value education and supports. And you know, in many ways that stage is even more important to have access to those types of things. So it is really a relevant topic to look at for your organization, either if your team is younger or if they're closer to retirement.
Two quick things have come in, probably fast answers, but Karen's asked, does Common Good assist with rolling over to income at 70? So Karen, yes, it does. What you're probably asking about is, does the plan help you turn your RSP into what's called a RIF, or a registered retirement income fund? And yes, it does. So essentially, again, this is meant to be a plan that is a plan for life. Once you hit age 70 and you want to be transitioning your RSPs into RIFs and taking money out, we help you do that too. So technically, Common Good is a group TFSA, RSP, and RIF plan, because members, when they do reach that age of 70, are going to start turning their RSPs into RIFs and withdrawing the funds. Loida asked, if you have money in a locked-in RSP, can that be transferred? So if I understand your question correctly, Loida, you might be asking about if you have a locked-in RSP from, say, a previous pension plan that you moved out of with a previous employer or something like that, can you move that money into Common Good? Today, we can't accept locked-in funds. So if you had a locked-in RSP, unfortunately, we can't transition that into the plan if your employer did join it. We may be able to in the future. So we're always looking at additional features and ways to help people. It's an ongoing process to always be improving the plan. And we have heard from a fair number of folks that have former pension plan entitlements that are locked in, that they want to move them into the plan. So we may be able to do that in the future. So I know we only have a couple minutes left. Are there any final questions? And Selena's posted our emails in the chat as well, which is great. You can always reach us individually too. And we have a great team with a lot of depth and expertise here. So we're always happy to answer further questions. But unless anyone has any last ones, maybe we should wrap up and let folks get on with the day.
That sounds great. I guess if we don't have any other questions, folks, you do have the email addresses for Kirk and for Connor. If there are no other questions or comments, I'd like to thank Connor and Kirk for their time today, for their expertise. I'd like to thank the OCASI members for making time today for this information session, as well as our simultaneous interpretation multi-languages corporation for making time to help us with the interpretation today. So if we have nothing else to do today, the recording, are you going to get a recording? Yes, you will. Everybody who has participated will get a copy of the recording. And Connor and Kirk, if it's all right, we'd like to also share your slides, if that's all right. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So again, thank you so much for your time, for your expertise. Thank you to the membership for your time, your questions. I hope that you all got what you needed from this. And until we meet again.
Thank you very much. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.